Good morning, George Hepworth, Grover Park Consulting. In part 2 of this multi-part series on using a hybrid Access and PowerApps application with SQL Azure tables, I'm going to step over from the Access side into the PowerApps side and do two things. First, I'll show you a quick overview of how the application works, and then I will take a little deeper look at the way I used collections in the PowerApps application to leverage the ability that collections give us. Specifically, collections are fast in-memory temporary tables that are created when you instantiate them at some point in the app, and then you can use them throughout the application session as if it were the original data source. There's qualifications to that, but that's essentially the basic concept. One of the two main reasons for using collections is that you can load a largish record set from the server once and have that record set, which is a table in the collection, available throughout the rest of that session. Now, when I say largish, one of the restrictions on PowerApps, of course, is the number of records. Maximum of 2,000 you can manage. If you have much larger record sets, your calls to the server become performance drags. I have put as many as 9,400 records into a collection in memory. Typically, you won't do that, but the concept here, as I said, is you load that large record set once into a temporary in-memory table, and then it's available throughout the session. The other use that you will see for a collection is that it's a way to manage a process where you are collecting items or selecting items for a process, and before you commit that back to the database, you have a chance to review that collection of data in the PowerApps application, either validate it or modify it, change it, the last step being committing it. So let's go look at PowerApps and see how this is done. Here we are looking at the shopping list PowerApps application. It's in my design environment, currently looking at the design view. You can see that it consists of 4 screens. There's the startup, which we're looking at here. There's a shopping list and a current shopping cart. That's the shopping cart. The current shopping cart is where I put items today that I want purchased today. The shopping list is a historical list of all of the items that I've ever entered into my SQL Azure database to track historical costs and vendors. The application itself uses 6 tables and 1 view, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 collections. The tables are, as you can see, linked to SQL Azure. The summary, the shopping summary, is a view. It's a denormalized view for you Access developers. It's a denormalized view of all the data from the other tables, and I did that in order to have a convenient way to create a collection. The collection is created from that view, and then I can use that denormalized data in my shopping list, in my shopping cart, so I don't have to repeatedly do calls, lookup calls, back into the SQL Azure database to get text values for the foreign keys in the list. Both the foreign key and the text value are represented in that denormalized view. This collection is built from that view. This is a collection used for the shopping cart, where I collect items that are going to be in my current day's shopping. This is the full list. This is the current shopping list. As I mentioned earlier, this list is primarily intended to bring in the entire record set in the beginning so that I don't have to make repeated calls to the server. This one is used to manage the process of completing the transaction. Let's look at how the collections are built. We can use the expression builder here. We'll drop it down with the drop down, reveal the code behind or inside the expression builder. The first thing we do is create the shopping filtered collection, which is the summary list of each item that I have purchased in this program over the last several years. It's based on the summary view. The shopping summary view is, again, the denormalized view. In this example, in order to show you kind of two different ways of doing it, I explicitly listed all of the columns. Now, these columns match the columns in the source view. I explicitly named them, and they have to be named exactly the same. In this one, I did not do that. I just simply said, give me everything in this table. Give me all of the columns in this table. It has a filter applied to it. So this one is unfiltered, but specified. This would be the equivalent in a query of specifying all the fields. This one would be the equivalent, this one in a query would be the equivalent of select star. Okay, it took a minute for the screen to respond, but now we're back. We have a new collection. It's a table, and I've repeatedly used the term in-memory temporary table. It brings back all of the columns from the underlying view. Notice that it lists them in the collection in alphabetical order, A to Z. I brought them in essentially a random order. Clear collect does two things. First, it takes whatever is in this collection at the time and deletes it. Then it rebuilds the records in that collection from the source. So this is an empty and refill. We do the same thing with the clear collect, except, as I mentioned before, it's a wildcard. Bring me all of the columns except filter out those records where bought is false. So the current shopping reflects, okay, this is what I have in my shopping cart today that I intend to buy. I intend to buy it, so I put it in the cart, but it isn't yet purchased. The other way to create a collection is this one. Take a quick look at it. I won't go through it in detail, but basically collect says whatever you have existing in this collection at that moment, add new records. Delete and rebuild, add to the collection. And again, this is also a collection, which is a table. It only has one record based on what we tell it to put in as our seed values. So that is how the collections are created. Okay, that's it for today. Let's wrap this up by reviewing what we saw. I showed you how I use collections in a couple of different ways. The first one we went into more detail, and that is using a collection to preload a table of values from an underlying data source. That allows us to speed up performance and avoid having to make repeated calls back to the server to get that same data. And by using a denormalized view, I was able to avoid lookups to get text values for foreign keys. The other way we use collections is going to be the subject of part 3. And in that one, we'll talk about using the collection to manage the process of purchasing items from the shopping cart. I hope you are enjoying and learning something from these videos. If you are, please reward me. Give me a like and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.